fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights of the modern regeneration of the show. Today's episode is episode 7 of season 2, The Idiot's Lantern. They warned us about too much television. We should have listened. This episode is written by Mark Gatiss, directed by Euros Lyn. It first aired on the 27th of May, 2006, and it was initially watched by 6.32 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
This is Josh.
This is Arlene.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. This is Frank.
And this is Brian.
All right, let's get into it. It's a stormy night in London, 1953. Mr. Magpie, owner of Magpie Electronicals, falls asleep in his office after going over his books. Nearby, the Connolly family are listening to the radio. The son, Tommy, asks his dad to buy a television set. His father says no, but maybe for Coronation Day. Back at Mr. Magpie's, lightning strikes the antenna outside and a television turns on. The image of a woman on the TV calls to Magpie by name and wakes him up. She sends out tentacles of electricity from the TV, which pulls his face toward it while she laughs fiendishly.
I love how you started that as a Rod Serling kind of reference.
Submitted for your approval. Which you approved.
Well, it's definitely going for that kind of tone.
The first thing we notice, I think, on this show is the camera angles.
Yeah, the Dutch camera angles.
Yeah, I didn't go to school for that. But also,
what we know as Batman 66 camera angles.
Exactly.
But that's what that's called.
Yeah. At first, I was thinking it was more of a horror element, but then as the episode went on, I realized it was more Twilight Zone-esque, which is horror-esque, but I felt like kind of gelled a little bit more as it went on because it was so different from most of the episodes.
I felt like it just brought us into the time period because, I don't know, I've watched a lot of reruns, so I'm like, okay, this is something that's bringing us back. This is the date that they're in, so that's what I thought of the camera angles.
But I thought it was mostly, this is the episode we're going to try and scare the kids.
Yeah.
And this is definitely visually getting you unsettled for that.
Mm-hmm. I guess if a little kid, this is a good way if your kid's watching too much TV to just show them this episode. This would have freaked the heck out of me when I was a kid.
Oh, Daddy, I want to be in the TV.
No, I wouldn't have been like that. I would have.
I like the little touches that set it in its time period. And it was interesting to know that in Britain, they did the same thing that the U.S. used to do at the end of days broadcasting, because they don't end broadcasting anymore. But back in the day when they were done broadcasting, they would play the national anthem. And apparently they did the same thing in Britain because it starts playing God Save the Queen when he's falling asleep.
And then it goes to that image.
And then it just goes to static, which is what the...
No, it went to
Off the air.
The off-the-air signal. That's right.
Yeah.
Brian, what were some of the other touches? You mentioned that there were a lot
throughout the
of touches.
episode, there's little... Like also the antennas on the roofs. It's like,
get to
there are
that.
no antennas on people's houses anymore.
Well, I mean, we see one antenna right now that gets struck by lightning, and it's in the shape of sort of a swastika.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
all the antennas look
get
like
that.
swastikas.
And then
in
from
this
then
episode.
on, yeah.
And that was intentional. They did that just to be kind of menacing and post-war, just to remind you of the time period kind of thing.
And was this our first red lightning, or did we have red in previous episodes? I don't remember it jumping out at me, so
I
Maybe.
think just, yeah.
their effects budget went
Yeah.
up.
Are you talking about like the tentacles that come out of the screen? They were red.
And also that hit the antenna in the air.
Maybe just to connect that it's an alien thing.
And another thing is that woman, well, I mean, it's an actress playing that character. It's definitely taken from a real life BBC woman who did this job. I think she did it like from the late 40s to the early 50s. I looked it up, but
I have it.
so it's kind of like one of those things where it's like if an American had a vision of somebody talking like Walter Cronkite, we would kind of feel that same sort
She
of thing.
felt very authentic. I
Yes,
guess.
yeah, she does a really good job, but that was very much a BBC thing. Even her accent, because in the early years of television with the BBC, there was a BBC-approved accent. You had to speak in that certain way, not clipped, not Cockney. You know, you pronounced every syllable. You speak. Are you sitting comfortably? You know, and to get a job on the BBC, you had to speak that way.
No blimey.
No blimies and no bloody. Bloody was like the worst
that's
swear word
offensive.
you could ever say.
I have that information here. The phrase, "Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin," was popularized by the 1950 to 1982 BBC radio series Listen with Mother. And it begins with those words.
Looking at
Sorry, I just found the information. The Wire, played by Maureen Lipman, is closely modeled on British TV presenter Sylvia Peters, and so she was one of the BBC's primary continuity announcers from 1947 to 1958, and she helped the Queen in real life learn how to do the Queen's Christmas speech, which is an annual event. Every Christmas Day, the Queen does a speech on TV. That was new. This real life woman helped the Queen how to do that every year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
I wonder if there's any correlation to that idea to this particular episode.
I think maybe, but it's more just the time period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, anybody who lived through that time period would go, "Oh my gosh, they have that woman."
The Connolly family at the beginning looks like a typical nice family sitting around listening to the radio. And even the grandmother saying, you know, "No, we don't need a TV. It'll just rot your brain," and warning about how terrible that would be to have a TV. So it's a nice family, but you know something evil's lurking. You know something else is coming. You know, it's just a big setup for that.
Yeah.
A month later, the Doctor and Rose arrive, thinking they are in 1956 New York to see Elvis on the Ed Sullivan Show, but arrive instead in 1953 London, the day before Queen Elizabeth's coronation. Mr. Magpie is delivering TV sets and tells them that everyone can afford one thanks to the low prices at his shop. Rose notices that almost every house has an antenna, but recalls that TVs were so rare in 1953 that people gathered to watch the coronation in the few homes that had one.
Has it been common yet, even in the first season, that they keep ending up in the wrong place? Like he doesn't know where
Yes.
he's landed.
Yeah.
It happened with Unquiet Dead.
Right. I do remember that.
And that's also kind of goes back to the original series because the TARDIS was kind of cranky.
Unreliable.
Unreliable, yeah.
But much more fun.
So it's not, you notice that they're surprised but not shocked.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, here we go again."
Yeah.
So
It's
and
great-
can I just say, just for me, scooters are not cool.
It's not a scooter. It's
And then I was thinking helmets probably wouldn't have been used either if they were using a scooter in 1953.
That's true.
I was
That's
wondering
very
about that,
true.
too.
And the other one was the costuming. Like her dress was definitely not 53. And I was thinking, okay, it could have been 56, but the material that her dress was made out of is not something that would have been used. So I'm like, someone would have spotted that out really quick.
Yeah,
like,
and her
"Ooh,
jacket was nylon.
what is this?" Like, and her like dress was polyester, and polyester wasn't used as much in the early 50s. So, yeah,
Her jacket was her normal jacket.
Was it
Oh,
denim?
was it?
Yeah, it was
No,
that
No,
blue.
The blue. Oh, okay.
It was that blue
yeah.
metallic looking
like yeah.
jacket
didn't know
that
if that
she
was-
always wears.
Oh, okay.
And I remember thinking like, "Oh, that's cool that she was able to wear that jacket
Yeah,
and still
it-
be period." But
I didn't know if it was leather or
because she
not.
wasn't.
I didn't know what I didn't really
No, I think
figure out
it,
what
it had snaps, and it looked like it was nylon, and
I don't know,
the
but
old members only type.
not quite members only.
it felt very like if you were going to Elvis show. So I'm like, I guess it would have worked if they were in New York in 56.
Yes, it was much more.
Right.
Well,
And they did it purposefully, and I thought it was really interesting because the other costuming that they had throughout the rest of the episode was really great. So
Yes, it was to have them stand out and it just not fit in. And it's odd for this episode they actually went in costume. That's something Jack used to do, kind of thing. It's like you dress for the period you're going to, and they never did. So, well, I guess they did a little bit. Unquiet Dead just comes to mind, but that was something that we're going for fun. This is just going to be a fun trip. That's nice to see that they're doing other things besides seeing them, having problems. Of course, they always run into them, but they do have fun. They are going just for maybe a date or something.
And the doctor's hair.
yeah.
It's the only thing changed.
That's just great. The doctor's hair.
Well, his suit's kind of period in a way.
well, really, how much do men's suits change?
Exactly.
Pants and a
Mikado.
jacket. Okay,
Unless it's the 70s.
well, there you go.
Oh my god.
Down the street, Mr. Connolly exclaims to his wife Rita and son Tommy how great their new TV set is, but his wife is horrified at what happened to her mother's face since the TV arrived. Next door, a woman screams for help as two men place her covered-up husband into a waiting police car. Tommy runs outside and tells the doctor and Rose that many people are turning into monsters and being taken away. His father orders him back into the house. The doctor and Rose chase the police car through the streets of London, but lose them in a dead end. Rose suggests that they go back and question the neighborhood.
Do you love how, at this point, Rose and the doctor are basically equal? Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't matter. She has a plan, or he has a plan. She has an idea, he has an idea. Doesn't matter where it comes from now. They're both coming up with good ideas that are effective. Like when they're on that Vespa and she says, let's go back.
He has a comment.
I mean, he kind of teases her a little bit, but that's just because it's the doctor. But it's a good idea. You know, it's like definitely there's no subordinate role at this point. They're very independent and coming up with really good ideas.
And especially when they go into the apartment and start interrogating.
Yes.
And even the first moment when they open the door and they both say hi really big, that very comedic moment. And then the turn when the doctor gets angry and how she's real on the husband and doesn't let him get away with being a jerk.
Yeah, it's good.
They're in sync.
Yes.
Very.
I did like how we don't see what's going on with people's faces. It's all just talk. So it's just the old-fashioned building everything up, covering up the people so you don't see what's going on, just to get you enticed a little bit into this.
And they do show Magpie getting affected in the beginning to show you something creepy and spooky, but they don't show you the effect.
That's true.
But then
the next time you see him,
he's fine.
He's almost unrecognizable. The first time you're watching it, you're going, "Wait, is that the guy we just saw in the beginning?"
I didn't recognize him.
But you know, he's
really why?
Because he's
a different
we saw
demeanor.
him so down on his luck, and like now he's wearing a full suit. He's looks rested. You know, he's happy. He's, you know, chipper to do his job. Whereas we saw him in the dark of night. Oh, my life is awful.
He's losing money and all
I
that. He's the one who's delivering the TVs.
Right.
And I didn't recognize him. I thought it was just a delivery man at first.
Yeah, me too.
I recognize
the same guy?
actors, so maybe that's why I knew.
And also, we don't know exactly if it's a month, but they reference a month later on. So it could have been a little bit longer that he's been building all this up.
True.
Well, speaking of the actor, if you may recognize him from Hot Fuzz, he was the doctor. Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
All right.
But when they turn down the alley, there's a big truck blocking the rest of the street, and that's because there are modern cars that weren't moved when they were filming. So they brought the truck out to block all the other modern cars and stuff, so you can't see it. And I do like
a nice big TARDIS blue truck. It's just in the middle of the street.
And I do like the Operation Market Stall. It just calls for that. The drive-through, close it off, but the little cart in front of it.
Like Indiana Jones.
It's great. It's fun.
I also like this doctor. You get a very 10th Doctor thing in this where he's like, you know, when he finds out it's 1953, and he's like, I love 1953. Oh, and he lists off things, and you kind of get that moment where this doctor just likes certain time periods, just because they're great time periods. He'll do it again. I don't know if he's done it before now, but it's like, oh, this is a great year, or I like this day of the week, and I don't like this day of the week. So that's a very 10th Doctor moment.
And going back to Rose, she's going to do what she normally does and starts the domestic approach, is what the 10th Doctor calls it. And I think that's showing more of their relationship. He knows what she's going to do and has
Which
like
is
a name to it.
A compliment, and then, wait a minute, is that an insult coming from you?
Back at the shop, Mr. Magpie tells the woman in the television he is done and presents her with a device she ordered him to make. He says she is causing him pain and begs for her to make it stop. She tells him that there is still so much to do.
So, Frank, you were talking about Cliff Richard. Who's that?
Well, they mention it when they get out of the TARDIS, and Rose knows the lingo. And she goes, oh, yeah, her and her mama used to watch Cliff Richard. And he was the British Elvis of the time. He had big number one hits. Everybody loved him.
Did you say that she said, oh, yeah, Jackie would have watched him, wouldn't she? Did he say that?
He said something, because...
she would. Jackie would have been a...
Cliff Roberts.
Cliff Roberts.
Richard
Roberts. Yeah, we don't know who.
May have liked Cliff Roberts.
Because he says the same thing about that she dated a sailor.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, she would have, wouldn't she?
He has sold 250 million records worldwide. He has a total sales of over 21 million singles in the UK and is the third top-selling artist in UK singles chart history, just behind the Beatles and Elvis Presley. Mm-hmm. Who is this
So
man?
what's his top song? Do you have that there?
The Idiot's Lantern.
I read it. I didn't recognize it.
Magpie and TV.
Yeah. What kind
His
of
1958 hit single, Move It, is often described as Britain's first authentic rock and roll song. And John Lennon once claimed that before Cliff and the Shadows, there had been nothing worth listening to in British music.
Wow.
Oh, John Lennon says so.
Then it must be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really.
He's like the internet.
Thus concludes Brian's corner. Tommy goes up to his grandmother's room, but his father will not let him unlock the door. He brings Tommy downstairs and begins yelling at him, but is interrupted by the doctor and Rose at the front door. They witness Mr. Connolly bullying his family, and both the doctor and Rose put him in his place. Then they demand to know what is going on. Upstairs, they see that the grandmother no longer has a face. Suddenly, the police burst in, knock out the doctor, and take the grandmother away. The doctor recovers quickly and leaves to follow the car. Rose is distracted by electrical tendrils coming from the television. She investigates and sees that the set came from Magpies. Mr. Connolly kicks her out of the house, so she goes to investigate the store.
But did you say that the doctor, didn't he run off
Separately?
Separately, like he left the house before that she.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yeah, but he wanted Rose to come with him.
Right. But he had to chase.
Yeah, but then he just went after the car.
Which shows how much he trusts her and how much she's okay being on her own.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's how they are now definitely companions. And she's like, well, you go ahead. You can handle that. There's something here. I got to investigate.
And it's one of the
He's
first
not
few
worried
ti-
about her.
Yeah, it's one of the first few times that we don't feel when they get separated.
Yeah.
Right.
Or he just forgot because he was excited about chasing.
In the heat of the moment.
And I feel like we've seen that before. Like where.
No, he called to her. and
Oh,
then-
I know, but
So I think he's like, well, she's not coming. I got to go. Otherwise, I'm going to lose them again.
Yeah.
So we get some characterization of the family here.
Yeah.
So you see that the dad is very much control, and
Well, it's not even. It's more than it's abusive.
yeah,
Mental abuse.
yeah. But in it to control, and he's very much of the vein of everything has to look good, doesn't have to be good, just has to look good, sweep everything under the rug.
And I was wondering by the end of the episode. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead just yet, but what the firm correlation is to why he was like that in this particular episode, because it wasn't like the alien was trying to control everyone. It was trying to devour everyone. So what's the agenda here for this character in this episode? I'm curious about.
I just think people are like that.
Look, it very well could be.
For me, I kind of look at it as who's the real monster in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I see it as that they're trying to poke at the family social construct in the 50s where the man's in charge, the woman's domestic. That's why the doctor makes that, the domestic approach joke. Mm-hmm. But he did it as a joke, and Rose knew that. But then when they get to the house, they see, this is not a joke. This is what's really happening. So to show an episode where a woman can be empowered to say no to abuse, I think that's what their agenda was. Like, yeah, abuse may seem normal because a lot of people looking at this family be like, this is a normal family. But it's not normal. And you can say no. And I think that's what the writer was going.
So you don't think
about
it was clued into the alien plot at all?
No, I don't think it was at all. I think the writer definitely was talking about family constructs and abuse in the home and wanted to say, hey, you have more power. It's its own storyline and you can survive this. The monster correlation doesn't matter. So, yeah, who's the real monster? Get rid of the monster in your house.
And being set in the 50s where everything had just changed because of the World War, and women were allowed to take over jobs, because at least in America, and I think it was probably in Britain too, just all the men would go to war. And so they had to get out of the house, get jobs, do other things. And in the 50s, they wanted to put them back in and say, you did your part. Thank you. Go make a souffle. And it's like, no, things are changing. So the father's life is all different.
He's losing control.
He's coming back from the war and nothing's going to be the same. And he wants it the same. So he's fighting everything in the world to try and hold on to normalcy, what he thinks is normalcy and what he thinks his old world was like. And it's not, nothing's the same. So this is a major change. And it's like, no, I can't handle that. I'm trying to get everything back to the small little life I used to have.
Yeah, and in counseling, they don't show it on the episode at all, but people who have that type of personality in front of other people are more likely to be physically abusive behind closed doors. So I think it's an implied physical abuse, and that's why the son says, oh, he's just a monster.
I think he was threatening to hurt him.
See, I wasn't sure. I thought they might have toned that back so that there was a sympathetic or redemptive quality for the end, that they didn't want to go as far as a physical abuse.
It was an episode there to put out that if you were in a domestic violence type of home, you would have caught it right away.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, oh, this is violence. And they're like, oh, that's like my family. So it's just kind of opening that door for people to talk about it as well in their own home.
I just assumed he was beating the heck out of his kid and the wife.
I mean, that old lady later even told him to, right? That was in this where she was like, oh, you should beat that out of him, you know, as soon as you can. So it's a very normal, you know, it's normalized. It's not even
I think there's a lot lots going on in that family house.
Yeah.
Because when I watch it, I see the gay kid not being, you know, knows what threat he's under from that. So, and you know, then that line, you know, you got to beat that out of him. And she says it so casually while she's watching the TV. I found that a very realistic thing, but I don't watch this episode, and maybe it's just because it's a Doctor Who and it is just a fun kids television show. I don't see Eddie as a physically violent person. I see him mentally violent, which in its own way is just as bad. But we didn't see a physical violence in there. So to me, it's like, I don't want to bring that to the table when I'm watching it, because to me, that's just very horrific. So I just kind of leave it.
But, you know, sorry to go into like the psychology standpoint. You know, I do youth counseling. So with episodes like this, you kind of watch them and you see the reaction in the children, and it kind of opens the door for them to talk about things that are happening in the home. And that's why I think that it's written so well, because you right away were able to see, you know, the gay correlation, because that's something that you grew up with, that fear.
Yes.
So if a child that grew up with a fear that if they did something wrong, their dad was going to beat them, they will see that right away in that episode as well. So I thought it was very cleverly written. Not anything was put like in your face. It was more like, hey, these are things that happen.
Right.
And it's not just you. So
also, did you notice the reaction shots of the actors when the Doctor and Rose are dressing down Mr. Connolly? The son is worried and kind of smiling. He is worried, but he's kind of enjoying it. The mother is worried and terrified. The look on her face, because she knows you people will be leaving, and then I have to deal with the aftermath. And I think Tommy, being younger, is still in that moment of he's going to enjoy this moment. He might learn later. But, you know, I mean, I still don't like, just my own personal thing, I don't want to go into a physical thing, but he'll rip them to shreds. He's going to just torture them when those people leave, because that's how he is. He's got to regain his control and his king of the castle moment. And the only way he knows how to do that is to abuse them.
And that's the first part of this scene. But by the time he gives in to the Doctor and tells him,
Get out.
She's
not that part.
You know, about the grandmother. He goes, no, she won't stop. She's doing all this. You can see that he's changed a little bit, and he's giving into the authority of the Doctor.
Right.
So I don't know.
She won't stop.
So at that point, I don't know how much he would retaliate against his family.
Oh, he would.
But then it goes back to the end.
Well, because
where it's like, okay, now he's back to being that controlling.
Yeah, because the Doctor keeps going at him and establishes himself as a higher authority than him. So he's answering the Doctor's questions at that point. The moment the Doctor's out of the house,
because he does change, going, wait a minute, even at
he's gonna be really, and that it was witnessed in front of his family. He's just gonna go crazy. I love the dressing down, though.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah,
and
Rose with it's the Union flag. It's not the Union Jack, which is just hysterical.
And I even liked it. Like I said, thing before, like she knew all that because Jackie dated a sailor. Yeah. Like it comes back to character. It's not just convenient that she knows these things.
There's a reason for it. And it's funny and it's services the character arcs.
And on the lighter side of the scene, the whole birds and the wallpaper that they did the set dressing. Just reminded me a little bit of Norman Bates with all the birds on the wall. And then there's an accent wall with a different busy pattern.
Did you notice the rug? I noticed the rug. It was all cool patterns, but I was like, man, that is a busy room.
I did like the floor creaking when the grandmother was walking towards. That was creepy. And I thought her face was done really well.
I think
there's a lot of texture to it.
I think she was the only one that was in makeup.
She was the practical one. That's why it
looks so good. No. The grandmother's the other way around. The grandmother, because of the actress's age, none of that is practical. That's all digital.
Really? Even the close-up?
Yeah, they weren't going to put that actress through
because it's too hard to breathe.
The seeing.
I mean, because Rose is later.
Because they said it on the commentary we listened to last night.
Oh.
But they could have done it with any other actress. Like, it didn't have to be
They probably didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But later on, when other people show it, I think it's because they tried to add texture because she was older, and so it looked better. And the other ones were younger, so they had smoother skin, so it just looked.
I think the others are like a digital blur, right?
Like, it looks like digital
maybe not digital, but
cosmetics.
something that they did.
Right.
It's digital. They said they were putting cross marks on everybody's faces.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
And with Rose.
Rose, the matting, like if you look at the edges, I think that's where, stuff like that breaks down a little bit.
But regardless.
There's some like odd, but it looks good.
I think the grandmother's is the best looking one, no matter how they did it.
One thing I do want to mention is the battle between Connolly and the doctor.
Yes.
Was a word battle, and words are the doctor's weapons. And the other guy was totally unarmed to that. I mean, you just saw how he could use those words and how he can control everything.
But I also liked how when the coppers showed up, like that word, his like words like ran out.
What force came in, punches down.
You can't keep talking once you're knocked out.
Rose confronts Magpie about the televisions, and he locks her inside the shop. The woman appears on the television and states she is the wire, and she is hungry. Tendrils of energy from the television attach themselves to Rose's face, pulling it toward the TV.
Her hungry call reminded me a lot of Are You My Mommy? Just this creepy...
like wailing call.
It was a combination of the elements, like the way that she looked. She was always cheery, and then the black and white footage and the way she said it. She was an adult crying like a child, and it just creeped the heck out of me.
And it adds like the same thing with Are You My Mommy? It's like such a clear motivation to our villain that's, such a base level, simple, like Are You My Mommy? Hungry, that it becomes less of, a person that's thinking and is planning and more just like this force of nature that's going to move through our episode or our character. And the actress, she does a great job of going from that prim proper BBC, like high level culture to like Brian just did that hungry, just full
I always kind of think it's a little over the top, but it's for the kids.
But she buys it. I mean, she sells it. She goes for it.
I agree with you about the similarity, but I don't think that she sells it right. I like Are You My Mommy, and I don't like Hungry. I wanted more of either a guttural or feed me.
Feed me,
Seymour. Because the Hungry, I just got more annoyed at the sound of it.
No, it was more staged, like Little Shop of Horrors, definitely.
But that's why I think it works in this. I mean, I found it annoying as well, but I was creeped out by how annoying it was. And I think this whole episode, the Dutch angles and the way it's shot and the close-ups, I totally thought of Little Shop of Horrors as well. And that's why I think it fits.
I just didn't like it that much. That's all I think.
The doctor sees the police car go into the secret alley and finds a way into the warehouse behind the entrance. Inside, he finds all the faceless people caged together. The doctor is then caught by those who have been gathering them up. Detective Inspector Bishop begins to interrogate the doctor, but the doctor quickly turns the tables and has the inspector answering his questions. During this exchange, they bring in another faceless, Rose.
I want to see the webisode of the street market guys who are sweeping
Constantly.
and then like 10-hour breaks while like nobody's coming around, and then quick, get back to sweeping.
Like you mean the Men in Black?
Yeah.
I know, it's 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
Start
who's sweeping that? Yeah.
And they look at the doctor. Like, I love that little look that one of them gives. So it's like, we know we're like here doing this again, but it's like, just go away now.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not paid to do anything else. Just leave me alone. There is a blooper here with the sonic screwdriver where the doctor goes in. Before he puts it back in his pocket coat, it flashes on his face, but there's no sound effect. So if you notice that.
And on the commentary, David Tennant is like, it bugs me every time I see it. I just clicked it for a second.
Well, I like that scene with the inspector, how it starts off, the doctor's being interrogated, the inspector's standing above him, and by the end of the scene, the doctor's standing above the interrogator. And also, well, the reason I asked about the Magpie shop scene was that watching it this time, I kind of felt like Magpie was trying to save Rose more than cover up what he was doing. Like, you want to get out of here, miss.
He's trying to get Rose out.
Right. Whereas the other times I'd watched it in the past, I was like, oh, he's trying to get away with what he's doing.
No, he's really being tortured.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want this to happen to Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's giving her every opportunity, but Rose just
is persistent.
I love the little start from the beginning. Isn't that the moment where he says, "Well, you can't wrap your fingers around your elbow and have them touch." Now, when they go back to the policeman, watch the guy in the back, because the guy in the back just subtly
takes his left arm,
puts his fingers around his elbow.
Yeah.
He's testing it, going, oh, I can't do that. And it's just so funny. It's just a little moment. But again, this is the doctor's weapon, words. And this is the scene where you see him using his weapon perfectly.
Mm-hmm. And they do have to start out with that same line. Start from the beginning, tell me everything you know. Starts the scene and then ends the scene. But the doctor's saying it rather than the inspector. The same words, which is great.
This is also the first reference of Torchwood that we have in this episode.
Oh,
it's very muted. You can barely hear it, but the detective Inspector Bishop says to the other guy that put his arm around his elbow, "Torchwood will be all over us," where the doctor is seeing and reacting to Rose's facelessness.
Yeah, because earlier on the doctor is saying, "Oh, you've got orders from on high," and all that kind of thing, and then it's kind of insinuated that Torchwood is
in charge.
Yeah, calling the shots on this.
One thing I noticed that I didn't understand was the hand grasping. All of the faceless people
they
do a hand grasp every once in a while.
Was that ever explained?
I will do so now.
It's not explained.
It's not explained in there because it's behind the scenes.
So we first see this in the cage.
Mark Gatiss, who was the writer of this, who we always go, who is this? And
who is he, Brian?
Mycroft Holmes on Sherlock.
Oh, and we always say, oh. Okay. So he's a writer on this, and in 2005, he and David Tennant both starred in The Quartermass Experiment, which was a live remake of the 53 series, and this is taking place in 53. So that was a nice little tie-in, and they had just done the show in 2005. So when he was writing this, he put the hand clasp, which shows an alien taking over somebody who came back from space, and he was infected by an alien, and that was his little clue.
Like his signature.
And so this was a
homage,
a little throwback to that they had just done.
It really didn't mean the same thing.
Like a side effect of being.
It's just a clue saying something's wrong.
Just weird, because I kind of took it as a sign of aggression. Like they were going to fight back, or because he was walking around and then they started like grabbing their hands.
I did until we saw later when the inspector's like that and he was doing it and he was just lying down.
Yeah, that's safe. That's safe.
And I saw it differently as more of a sign for trying to help, reach out or do something. So it's just how we saw it. But it was only put in just as a reference to something else they had just worked on together, which was nice. So it's all just an Easter egg.
It was for them.
But something that we all noticed. It was like, what is that?
Also, it's to show that they're
a close up of it,
right?
That they're not sentient. It's just this mechanical thing. It worked regardless.
Yeah.
The doctor goes to see Tommy to find out what really happened with his grandmother. The Connollys are having family over to watch the coronation, and Mr. Connolly will not have it disrupted. Tommy figures out it was his father who was notifying the authorities so he could protect his status and reputation. Rita tells Tommy to go and help the doctor and locks Mr. Connolly out of the house.
And this is where you get the who's the real monster.
Because you really saw Connolly lose it. Because he acting when I saw it, was just so over the top. But that was just, the character losing it totally about talking about the grandmother being so filthy and how he ratted out everybody in the whole neighborhood to just get rid of the problem so you don't see it. Everything.
What is Mr. Connolly's job? At the beginning in the cold open scene, he's wearing medals.
Yeah, because I think
he was off to a. I took that to mean he was off to like a
lodge meeting.
A lodge meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's veterans
of foreign.
He's a businessman.
No, he was something where you get your hands dirty because he wanted his son not to go to college and just follow in his footsteps.
Right.
They never
a
said what it
factory
was.
or something?
Mechanic?
Yeah. I can't remember, but something manual.
He's a foreman.
Probably not. I don't think he has any power at work.
That would be.
So he gets it at home.
That's right.
Tommy tells the doctor his gran was just watching TV the night she was changed, and they go to Magpie's, where the doctor finds the device Magpie made for the wire. The sonic activates the wall of televisions, which now show all the missing faces, including Rose's. Mr. Magpie enters the room, and the wire shows herself on one of the screens. She is planning to use the brain energy of the faceless to become corporeal again. The device she had Magpie build is a portable TV that will turn a large transmitter into a receiver to collect the energy from the millions of people who will be watching the coronation. She attacks them with electric tendrils, but the doctor pulls out the sonic screwdriver. Sensing the danger, she retreats to protect herself, knocking out the doctor, Tommy, and the inspector in the process.
I like the running gag of the inspector noticing all the TV technology.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
First,
he's like, that's portable.
It's a portable television. Then later on, a color. He's about to get killed, but he's amazed at the technology of the television.
There was a cutscene where he goes, "It's HD."
I like how Tommy sort of becomes the companion of this episode.
Absolutely.
And he's a good one.
But really, why does the doctor have to lick things?
Because it's funny.
It's just so
I know.
gross.
But that's what this doctor does.
doctor does,
That's what I don't know if it's Tennant's idea or not, but I was like, this is what the doctor does to get information. And so he looks at it and does get what's
Time
needed.
Lords have different nerve receptors in
This
their
is not
tongue.
the first time he licks something.
No, he does it a lot.
No, he does the wall in Tooth and Claw.
Yes.
Yeah.
So gross.
He goes,
It works. Yeah, I agree with you.
It works.
He's like, viscous. And then this one he goes, bake light.
Well, words being his weapon, it's all about the tongue.
Right.
Yeah.
Ah,
But wouldn't he want to protect his tongue?
it's regenerating.
I like that the doctor gave Rose credit. It's like Rose got it right away. Their antenna on the TV. There's something odd going on, and she picked it up right away.
I didn't catch that. Is this also earlier, the first time we saw the doctor get super protective of Rose when she was in danger or something?
The end of the first season? Or was
That's
killed?
funny you guys bring that up.
Because we have some behind-the-scenes information we want to give you.
Let me find it first.
Well, while you're looking...
Found it.
Whether,
Just kidding. Go ahead.
whether it's the first time or not, I always like it.
Yes, I do too.
I always really... Because it becomes more of a running thing throughout.
So what you guys were talking about, Mark Gatiss originally wrote the script with the Ninth Doctor in mind because Eccleston was going to continue with the second season, but then that wasn't to be. So that's why you get that. It feels very Eccleston to me at that moment. Yeah.
And I think Eccleston would have played it differently, but when seeing Rose's face and that fatherly, protective
It would have been more of a
feeling.
quiet anger.
And yeah, it would be, oh, you pissed him off. And Tennant just goes, I think, a little too over the top on this one. But he's trying to make it different in his own. But I could just see Eccleston, you would just see that calm juggernaut coming. It's like there's no going to be stopping him. And I just, now that I know that Eccleston was this was written with him in mind, you can see a lot of that. They added a humorous part of the Doctor, but when you strip it away and the type of fight he had with Connolly in there, I could see Eccleston doing it so differently and making it his, and that would be his Doctor.
The Wire transfers herself to the portable device and orders Magpie to take her away. He carries her to Alexandra Palace, the largest television transmitter in London. The Doctor and Tommy awake and gather supplies for the Doctor to make something to stop the Wire. He builds his machine as they run to the transmitter station. The Doctor tells Tommy to keep his machine switched on and goes outside to climb the tower where Magpie is attempting to attach his device. Magpie connects the device to the tower, and the Wire begins draining everyone watching the coronation of their brain energy.
So the Doctor is sans coat, and then he goes back to the TARDIS, not only to get his coat, but to get a beta video cassette.
Do we see him go back to the TARDIS?
It's a very brief scene running out out of the TARDIS. Very quick.
That's probably why I don't remember.
Yeah,
He does say I got one more thing.
In the shop, they're running out, and he says, I have to get one more thing.
Okay.
And then cut to the TARDIS. Basically, the TARDIS door, he's already shutting it.
Okay.
And they're running, and we don't know what he got. But
He
now
got
he's
his
wearing
coat.
his coat.
So it billows behind him.
Yeah. So it
Maybe
looks
I
good
didn't-
running in the wind.
Maybe I didn't notice the TARDIS because it was blending in so well in the our time period. But I just thought he was running out of a police box. Oh.
I didn't get that until watching it the last time.
Yeah, last night, because we were watching it, and Eugene and I were like, that's where he got the tape. And you were like, wait, what?
Because I never understood that
videotape.
while we're reading the ending, but you probably watched it already.
Hopefully.
If you're listening to this. But I never understood where that came from, where the tape
Yeah,
came from.
me
So
neither.
thank you for filling that in for me.
And kids, a videotape is a
Don't
little
even try.
box-like thing that had a magnetic strip that recorded images, and you could record over.
Using electromagnetic signals.
It looks like a cassette tape. But
Yes. But bigger.
They don't know what cassette tapes are
Kids,
either.
a cassette tape is
a cassette tape is what.
It's like a videotape.
Yeah, but you see them on shirts where they're like paneled and they're all multicolored.
Or as phone cases.
For you hipsters
phone
out there.
cases, or on purses.
Or in Guardians of the Galaxy, a mixtape.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, so hipsters, just look at your shirts. That's what you're wearing. By the way, did you also notice that when the brain energy is starting to get sucked out of everybody's face in the home, did you see it's even the dog?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, not the dog. Now you know the wire's evil.
The one thing I didn't like about that sequence, in a way, was how long it was taking for the people, and then the people were fine afterwards because it barely took like 30 seconds, and the inspector.
Well, it could be the proximity because the wire is right there where the
Oh,
transmitter.
that could be, and also too the fact that she was defeated at the end.
Yeah.
But the mother gave the stuff she was holding away and went to her kids
To
right
kids,
away.
that's true.
Yes.
So it was like they recognized
Something
something,
like
was
Oh
going on. So it
but
wasn't
I just mean that.
The after effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
That
I agree with you.
I wish they would have mentioned the race of the wire. I want to know more about this race that executed her,
Yeah.
but obviously did a good
they have
job
a
because
name?
she's still around.
Just the wire. That's it.
No, the
She's
race
the wire,
doesn't
but they
have
never
it. No.
mentioned what the race is.
I did find that I actually found to be the most corny thing that bothered me in the whole episode is that it was called The Wire.
Right.
Like, at all these other episodes, they have, Rexaflaxopatorium and this, that, and the other, and then The Wire.
Oh, I figured that's what she was just calling herself because she was in the wire at
You know,
the time.
I just,
Agreed, but
and
just
so
easy.
to explain to the humans, oh, I'm the wire.
No, I agree with you. Magpie complains that his head still hurts and she promised him peace, so she gives him peace by killing him. As the Doctor activates his machine remotely, a tube burns out. Tommy is able to replace the tube, reverting the tower back into a transmitter and trapping the wire inside the Doctor's machine. With the wire gone, everyone is returned to their natural state.
so Tommy saves the day.
yeah, and I like he's the one that thought of it. It wasn't like the doctor said, if something happens, replace the bulb or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, he was resourceful enough to do it on his
I
own.
like this kid. Also, did they say anything in the commentary about the scene where they're climbing the tower, like how it was done special effects wise? Because
The compositing's a little
it was
off.
composite.
Yeah,
Alright,
it was.
'cause I never really thought about it before, but last night when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I thought it was good, but
They're
I did
12 to 20 feet above?
12. They're 12 feet off the ground.
But were they actually climbing on that thing?
I don't think so. I think
No, they built it.
Yeah,
they
they-
they
built
did?
that. That's all
All right.
built. But yeah, they actually did climb 12 feet off the ground to do it. But isn't it one point where it's either part of the code or his leg
it's just
disappears?
part of his foot. The compositing's a
Disappears.
little
Oh,
off.
maybe that's something I know. I don't know. I noticed
I
something.
felt a little Doc Brown moment while he was grabbing
Yeah, especially with the little transistor thing, that like the spooling. That's what reminded
and
me.
even was it the Doctor? Or was it Magpie who was like dragging?
No,
something?
it was a
Maybe
doctor. It was a
Okay,
doctor.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you have that because I have that note too.
yeah, but
Tommy, we gotta stop the line.
1.21.
I did like the set design, I guess, of the tower and the what would you call that?
Yeah, I know the coil
No
thing.
idea what to do with your hands there.
They sort of looked like the top of the Kremlin. You know,
The coily thing.
the coily
Yeah.
things, the conductors or the radio things that sent the signal out. Transistor.
It's a transmitter tower, but I don't know the parts. Yeah.
50s looking sci-fi thing, which probably was just part of the technology that day.
Yeah.
Did you also notice on the videotape when the doctor ejects the videotape from the machine? Oh, I invented videotape 30 years earlier. But did you notice on the side it wasn't labeled? And there were Gallifreyan writings that he had crossed out and wrote some other, and then crossed out because he kept taping over.
No,
and it's just that when you realize that it's Gallifreyan writing, then you realize that's what he's doing. It's like I had so many videotapes like that had been crossed out, written underneath, crossed out, written underneath,
and it was a Betamax as opposed to a VHS tape.
And he was like, it's Betamax.
So, kids, a pen is something that we used to write information on.
It looks like a stylus.
It looks like a stylus on paper, and paper is...
The Doctor and Tommy go to the warehouse and are reunited with Gran and Rose. Rita kicks her husband out of the house, which suits Tommy just fine. Rose talks him into going to his father so that they might have some relationship in the future. I like that scene.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, too, or goes with her character, that's the father she's got sympathy towards.
Well, but she also says, you're smart enough to save the world, so don't just stop with the world. She's implying go save him. Make him a better man.
I don't think it'll work.
Yeah. But I think it works in that moment because we don't see him being physically abusive.
Yeah.
Because if he was, that moment wouldn't have played.
It's a very touching moment.
But do you also notice that the doctor's okay with him not? You know, to Tommy he says, good riddance. And the doctor just like nods his head. Oh, okay. The doctor's like, no second chances.
Right.
And then it's Rose.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think to Josh's point, Rose is saying that because she doesn't have a relationship with her father. So she's like, hey, your dad's still
absolutely.
alive, so go after him.
Yeah. My dad's gone. Yeah.
And again, totally another character connection. So.
And also, too, earlier in the episode, Rose ran to the wife. Was it in the room? She ran to somebody
to console her.
Like it's like again, like the in the second episode, first season, and she's always going to the people who are in need the most.
Did anyone else notice how many times Rose mentioned her mom, especially at the beginning of this episode? I don't know. That just stood out to me, and I was just wondering, I
wasn't keeping a tally, but I did notice.
It was 3 or 4 times, and 3 times all within the first 10 minutes of our episode. She mentions the story that my mom told me about how everyone huddled into a house for the coronation, and then she's like, oh, my mom and I used to watch this show with Cliff Richard, and then again when she was like, oh, my mom dated a sailor, and I was like, goodness, why? And I don't know, is it because we just came from the episode in the alternate universe
with the Cybermen
and
episode.
we're trying to
because she lost her
because Jackie died.
That Jackie was gone.
Right.
Wow.
I'm just wondering, is the writer, are they priming us for something later on where her mom comes back, or is this am I just noticing it because we had a very big storyline with Jackie?
Yeah, I think maybe
mom?
it's sort of keeping off-screen characters alive, but also giving an excuse for this young girl to know about these things.
Yeah, that's true too.
So it's probably a little bit of both. Well, what about Captain? It's like how they did in that one mini episode. Well, what's going on with Captain Jack?
Yeah,
remember, audience, there's these other characters, but I think how else is she going to know these things?
Right.
Some notes here. Magpie Electronical's logo has been in other episodes in Doctor Who since The Idiot's Lantern. Oh. It's seen on Martha Jones's television set in The Sound of the Drums, aboard the Starship UK in The Beast Below, on the Doctor's electric amplifier in Before the Flood, and even within the TARDIS itself on the 11th hour onwards. It's on the TV
Why would it be on Martha's TV though? If he died, it would have gone out of business by then.
Maybe Tommy took over the business. He didn't know how to change that bulb.
He didn't know how to change that bulb.
That's
A vacuum tube.
it's a tube. It's
The kid's a bulb.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So apparently,
tube.
apparently there was no reconciliation with his father because he decided to keep the bad guy's name rather than call it Connolly's TVs. I'd rather it be Magpies.
we missed the ad where it goes Magpie's Electronicals, courtesy of Connolly TV.
I also looked up Magpie because I just thought that was kind of an odd name. It's a superstition to see a lone magpie brings bad luck.
The Doctor also makes reference to a song "Never Too Late" by Kylie Minogue. Incidentally, she will appear in the Doctor Who episode later on.
I did. I don't know if I felt this way originally when I would watch it, but I really felt bad for Magpie, and I found that interesting. That basically the man who the character who was carrying out the evil plot physically, you were always on his side in a way. I mean, you never wanted him to succeed, but you always.
I thought they had written Magpie more menacing.
Yes.
Oh.
At the beginning, then toned it down.
Yes.
They wanted you to feel bad for him.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's the dichotomy of it.
Shall we say who this episode is good for? A new Who viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of Doctor Who, or a diehard? Josh, why don't you go first?
I think a casual viewer who's sort of seen it before. I think it's a good standalone episode, but I think the style of the way it's shot isn't in line with how it usually is. So a new viewer would think, is this the show? And it's kind of not the show. It's just the story is very the show. But the way it's directed, which I like, is not. So I think that would have too much influence over a new viewer. So I say casual.
Cool.
Weirdly, I would say it's good for anyone. Like, even if you, accidentally caught it on TV and you're like, oh, this is interesting. It's just good introduction to some characters, and it shows you that it could be weird and maybe not always the same. So I'm okay with a new Who viewer. And even when I watched this over again, I don't remember watching it. So I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, because it didn't leave a huge impression on me. But it was kind of oh, this was a fun episode to watch.
Like a nice little standalone.
Yeah, a nice standalone. So it doesn't matter. If you didn't like it, then hey, here's another one. So new for everyone.
Making me change my mind.
It does have a lot of good, it's got the time travel.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's got the time travel of the 50s. It's got the sci-fi. It's got it's got all of the Doctor Who elements.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if Arlene should always go first because she always has us thinking different ways. Or go last so that it doesn't affect our way of
There you go.
No, I'm going to be Lucy. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good.
already changed your order when
Because I already changed it because of what Josh said. Now I'm with Arlene.
Oh, no pressure.
I never agree with you.
I think I'm going to go with the fan of Doctor Who. I do like it. It's a good episode. It's got good stuff in it, but I am a fan of Doctor Who. And like you said, Arlene, I don't remember it. Like I didn't go into it saying, oh, yeah, this one, or, oh, I really hated this one. So I'm going to say, fan of Doctor Who, just because, they can't all be for everybody. So
Right.
Thank you, Auburn. Well, I do remember watching this episode, and I remember not liking it. And I when we are going to do this podcast, we have to watch it again. I was like, oh, this episode. I really never wanted to watch this episode ever again, just because it didn't leave an impression on me. I didn't enjoy watching it the first time. So even though, we found a lot to talk about in this episode, it brought up a lot of good discussions, I'm going to say that this episode is good only for a diehard fan who has to watch every single Doctor Who episode, because I don't consider myself a diehard. I consider myself a fan, and I didn't like this episode. So I'm going to say it's good for a diehard.
We got our first diehard. Yeah, I'm so excited.
I'm a little torn between either the fan or the diehard. I'm on the fence on that one. I don't think it's good for a new viewer because it's not really representational of the show in that they're in costume. It's a little different than what they usually do. I didn't like the episode overall. It's not one I hate, but it's like Arlene was saying, you don't really remember it. It's not one that you come up with of being, well, what's the worst episode? There are some others that fit that. What's the best one? I think a fan would like it. And I don't, should I go for the fourth one? I'm just a diehard. Oh.
I feel like it's just so middle of the road. It's kind of like you can't really super fail in this one. Like people can say,
nothing really great, but nothing really terrible.
Yeah, and it's just like, and it has a lot of like story, and it's fun, and they're solving something. I don't know.
And because we had a lot to talk about, I'm going to go fan, the third category.
I think if someone was a fan of the Twilight Zone and they were a new viewer, I would say this would be okay to watch for them because it's in line with that.
Right, but the style of how they filmed it and everything was so unique. It's not
right.
That's why it's
not normal.
It's something I wouldn't go for a new time viewer.
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm gonna say fan. I agreed with Auburn. It's not the best. Certainly not the worst. I kind of wonder if a casual fan might be turned off because, like Josh says, the production is not really what the show usually looks like. I mean, they might wonder it's some weird. Yeah, they're always going to be doing weird things.
You don't want to say, "Oh no, it's not always like this."
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to stick with the fan. I do think fans would enjoy it. I enjoy it. I don't ever seek it out, but if I have the disc playing and it continues on into this episode,
skip. I skipped it.
Yeah, so I'm going to say fan.
Cool. I'm probably going to go with casual just because we had a lot to say. And I don't have anything bad, particularly like horrible, remembering this episode, but also nothing particularly great. But it's also not as bad as some episodes will be, so I'm going to lean toward casual on this one. And one more thing I wanted to point out is that the theme that they play, the anthem, the national anthem for the United Kingdom is God Save the Queen, and it changes depending on who's on the throne. And that's, for us in America, we know that as My Country 'Tis of Thee, the same melody. So
that's right.
If you remember hearing that, that's why. You've heard our views. What do you think of this episode? How it was shot? Do you like the style? Do you not like the style? Let us know. Email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. So that wraps up the Idiot's Lantern, and we will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
You can find his work at
theuniverseexplodes.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All of our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history,
and especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord. Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
The Doctor and Tommy go to the warehouse and are reunited with Gran and Rose. Rhoda. Mare. Oh, sorry.
Start again.
Hold on, let me blow my nose real quick.
Everybody cough.
and then just the brief.
Yes. Wait, I'm going to go cook us some fun.